What if I told you that the most profound growth in life doesn't come from success, but from our deepest wounds? Sounds like a paradox, I know. But there's a fascinating concept in psychology called post-traumatic growth. And it shows that a surprising number of people who go through hell, who endure immense psychological struggle, don't just bounce back, they bounce forward. Some estimates suggest that as many as half to two-thirds of trauma survivors report at least one positive life-altering change because of what they went through. They build stronger relationships, discover an inner strength they never knew they had, and develop a much deeper appreciation for life itself. This might sound completely backwards, especially when we see so many leaders, people who seem to have it all, suddenly walk away from their own success. We hear about CEOs resigning to protect their mental health, admitting they're being crushed by the weight of their past. It's not just a few rare cases. A 2022 Deloitte study found that nearly 70% of C-suite executives were seriously considering quitting their jobs for one that better supported their emotional well-being. So what's going on here? Why are people who have climbed to the very top of the mountain suddenly feeling like they can't take another step? And maybe more importantly, how do you make sure that doesn't happen to you? So today we're going to pull back the curtain on the surprising truth about healing emotional wounds and revealing the single most important first step to turning your pain into your greatest power. So on the surface, we think leadership is all about strategy, vision, and execution. But underneath that polished exterior, there's often a hidden history of unresolved personal pain. For so many successful people, the very same drive that fuels their ambition is tangled up with old wounds. And these don't have to be big, dramatic traumas. They can be the quiet, subtle cuts from childhood, a past relationship, or an early career failure. Think about it. How many hyper-successful people do you know who are absolute perfectionists? Or people who use work a way to never have to sit still and look full inward? These are classic trauma responses. Early criticism can fuel an obsession with overachievement, one that's rooted in the paralyzing fear of failure. A past betrayal can show up as an intense need for control, making it almost impossible to trust a team or delegate. These aren't just personality quirks. They are brilliant coping mechanisms. And for a while, they really work. They can launch a person to incredible heights. But that success comes with a hidden tax. That unresolved emotional pain doesn't just go away. It quietly poisons every decision. Research shows that unresolved trauma can make leaders either incredibly risk-averse or dangerously impulsive, especially when the stakes are high. They might see a simple disagreement as a personal attack or filter off feedback through the lens of past criticism, leading to terrible judgment and broken relationships. The very survival skills that got them through their past, their hypervigilance, that need for control, that relentless drive, become massive liabilities at the top. The pressure of leadership is like a magnifying glass, making these unresolved issues bigger and bigger until the weight is just unbearable. And that's when we see them walk away, not because they failed, but because the cost of their success, a success fueled by unhealed wounds, finally became too high to pay. To really get why this happens, we have to look at what's going on inside the brain. When you experience something traumatic, whether it's a single event or a long period of emotional stress, your brain literally rewires itself to protect you. It flips a switch into survival mode. Three key parts of your brain are totally transformed. First, the amygdala, which is basically our brain's smoke detector, becomes hyperactive. It's constantly scanning for danger, which is why people with unhealed wounds often feel this low-grade, constant anxiety or get triggered so easily. A harmless comment or a minor setback can feel like a five-alarm fire because the amygdala is screaming, danger! Second, the prefrontal cortex, the logical, rational CEO part of your brain, becomes underactive. When your amygdala is sounding the alarm, the thoughtful part of your brain gets knocked offline. This is why you can't just think positive or get over it. You're biologically cut off from the very part of your brain that would let you do that. And third, the hippocampus, which is in charge of filing away memories, gets all dysregulated. It struggles to label the traumatic memory as something that's in the past. So instead, the memory stays fresh and active, like an open tab on your computer, ready to pop up as a flashback or just a constant feeling that the danger is still right here, right now. So this creates a vicious, self-reinforcing loop. The hyperactive amygdala sees threats everywhere, the underactive prefrontal cortex can't calm it down, and the disorganized hippocampus keeps the old memories feeling brand new. You get stuck in fight, flight, or freeze. This isn't a character flaw, it's a biological reality. Your brain has been rewired for survival, not for success or happiness. And that's why leaders with unresolved trauma might react with intense anger or fear to situations that others see as totally neutral. Their brain is responding to a ghost from the past. Hey, if any of this is hitting home for you, if you're seeing these patterns in yourself or someone you care about, take a second to hit that subscribe button. We're all about understanding these deeper patterns here and figuring out how to move forward. And if you feel comfortable, share one pattern you noticed in the comments. Just acknowledging it is a huge step. And your story might be the very thing that makes someone else feel a little less alone. So, what are we supposed to do about all this? For generations, the advice was just to be resilient, push through, be strong, leave the past in the past. But here's a critical distinction. Healing is not the same as resilience. Resilience is about bouncing back to where you were before. Healing is about transformation. It's about becoming someone new, someone stronger, wiser, and more compassionate because of what you've been through. You can't just force yourself to heal because, as we talked about, trauma isn't just a story you tell yourself. It's physically stored in your body and your brain. Trying to ignore it is like trying to ignore a deep cut that needs stitches. It's not going to get better on its own. It's going to fester and affect every single part of your life. This is where that idea of post-traumatic growth really shines. Growth doesn't happen by pretending the pain isn't there. It happens by turning towards it and making sense of it. It's the struggle itself that unlocks a new way of being. Think of it this way. When a bone breaks, if it's set correctly, it often heals back even stronger than before. That point of fracture becomes fortified. Emotional wounds can be the exact same. When we actually tend to them, when we give them the care and attention they need, they don't just become scars, they can become our greatest source of strength, empathy, and purpose. People who experience this kind of growth don't forget what happened. They integrate it. They find new meaning in their story. They often report having more compassion, better relationships, and a crystal clear sense of what truly matters in life. This isn't about finding a silver lining in a tragedy. It's about forging that silver lining yourself through the courageous and difficult work of healing. So, what is the first non-negotiable step on this journey? It's not forgiveness. It's not positive thinking. It's not even talking about it. The very first step is to cultivate emotional awareness. This just means learning to turn inward and notice what you're feeling without judging it. For so many of us, especially high achievers, the default coping mechanism is to numb out, to distract, to stay so busy that there's no time left to heal. But you can't heal a wound you refuse to even look at. Emotional awareness is the simple act of looking. It starts with basic questions. When you feel your shoulders tense up or your stomach clench or that familiar wave of anger or anxiety, can you just pause for a second and ask, what am I feeling in my body right now? What's the name of this emotion? Is it fear? Is it shame? Is it sadness? You don't have to fix it. You don't have to change it. You just have to name it. The simple act is revolutionary because it starts to reverse the trauma response in the brain. By mindfully noticing your emotions, you start to bring your prefrontal cortex, the thinking part of your brain, back online. You're sending a signal to your hyperactive amygdala that you aren't just blindly reacting, you're observing. This creates a tiny, precious gap between the trigger and your response. And in that gap, that's where your power is. This is the very foundation of neuroplasticity, your brain's incredible ability to rewire itself. Practices like mindfulness and even simple breathing exercises have been proven to calm the amygdala and strengthen the prefrontal cortex over time. Every time you pause and notice, you are carving out a new neural pathway. You are literally teaching your brain a new way to respond, one based on awareness instead of knee-jerk reaction. This is the beginning of taking back control, not by fighting your emotions, but by finally understanding them. Healing from emotional wounds isn't a quick fix, and it's definitely not a sign of weakness. It's one of the most profound journeys of self-discovery a person can ever take. It's not about erasing the past, but about weaving it into your story in a way that allows you to build a stronger, more meaningful future. We've seen how the very drive for success can be rooted in past pain and how that pain can eventually sabotage everything we build. We've learned that trauma rewires the brain for survival, but that we have the power through neuroplasticity to rewire it for peace. That whole journey begins with one quiet, courageous step. Turning your attention inward and getting to know your own emotional world. It's a simple internal shift, but it's the key that unlocks everything else. Healing is possible. Growth is possible. And the strength you're looking for is already inside you, just waiting to be uncovered. Thank you for going on this journey with me today. If this video was helpful, please give it a like and maybe share it with someone who needs to hear this message. For more content on turning your past into your power, make sure you subscribe. I'd love to know what your biggest takeaway. Let me know in the comments below. Remember, the path of healing is one we can walk together. And that's what the Redeployed is all about, walking this journey together. And in the description below, you're going to see a 7-day soul reset that helps you rewire your brain and helps you with your emotions. So check that out. It's free to download. It's 7 days. Make sure you subscribe. And then remember that you are not disqualified. You are just being redeployed.